Incredible 5-minute transformation. Black woman's encounter with white officers reveals touching truths of humanity. Angela was at the end of her rope. After a long shift wiping down tables and taking orders at the diner, the weight of her life as a single mother crashed down on her like a tidal wave. It was late, the streets dimly lit, and she was always haunted by the ticking clock that threatened to keep her kids waiting. As she slid into her aging car, tiredness seeped in, a familiar companion. That night, though, her car let out a series of creaks and groans before dying completely on a quiet street. Panic flared inside her. If she didn't get home soon, her babies would worry. Hunched over the steering wheel, she gripped her phone tight, the weight of her world feeling heavier than ever. Deserted roads echoed her thoughts. Was she a failure for not providing a better life? Just then, a pair of patrol cars rolled to a stop beside her. Her heart quickened. Officers Miller and Thompson stepped out. Instinctively, she held her breath like many before her. She had learned to be wary of authority. The oppressive heat mixed with her anxiety made it hard to think straight. Officer Miller, younger but grounded in his family values, approached first. His voice was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos brewing inside Angela. Thompson, standing back, shared a knowing glance with his partner, their own burdens evident in the tight lines around their eyes. They weren't here to intimidate, they were genuinely concerned. Talking initially felt strange, nerves buzzing with uncertainty. But as Angela shared her plight, detailing her struggles of working 2 jobs and worrying about her children, the walls began to crumble. "I know what it's like to fight against the tide," Officer Thompson finally admitted, his words heavy. They connected, moments of shared experiences filling the gap between them as they sought common ground. But just then, chaos erupted as a passerby misread the scene, creating a stir among a small crowd gathering. Voices roared, tension thickened in the thick night air. Angela stood firm, hot anger in her chest, but she took a deep breath. She refused to let fear dictate the narrative unfolding. Before she could speak, a child from the back of the crowd called out innocently, "Are they helping her?" The simplicity of it, pure and unadulterated, cut through the chaos like a knife. Murmurs softened, eyes shifting, recognizing the humanity in all 3 of them. As the anger began to fade, the officers exchanged looks, self-reflection dawning between them. Angela felt a shift, something deeper rising amid the vulnerability on display. This wasn't just about her moment of desperation. It was about understanding the complexities of the human experience, the prejudices they all fought against. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The community involvement grew, people joining in with compassionate comments. Angela, standing proud, felt the transformative power of empathy begin to seep through the heaviness of the moment. She struck at the heart of the issue, her voice rising above the noise, a plea for unity, for understanding, for seeing beyond their differences. Around her, people connected, thinking beyond prejudice, seeing each other's stories as valid. Staring into the faces surrounding her, Angela felt hope spark in her chest. Would this moment cascade into something greater? Would it open doors for discussions in the community where connections had been severed? In the heart of that summer night, with the crowd now buzzing around her, Angela stood at a crossroads, wondering what this fragile connection could really mean for everyone. Would they rise together, or would she be back to fighting alone once again? Angela's heart raced as she looked into the faces surrounding her, feeling the weight of their attention pressing down. The warmth from their gazes, infused with curiosity and concern, filled the night air. She could see the uncertainty etched into some of them, but also the flicker of understanding beginning to bloom. "Listen, everyone," Angela called out, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions within her. "I know many of us come from different places, but we're all human. We all have struggles." Her words sliced through the tension, inviting connection rather than division. The murmurs in the crowd began to quiet, drawing people closer. A woman with tired eyes stepped forward, her own story written in the crinkles of her brow. I lost my job last month, she confessed, her voice shaking. I don't know how I'll make rent. Angela nodded, her heart aching for her. You're not alone, she replied, the empathy flowing as naturally as the tears that threatened to spill. From the back, a teenager waved his phone, recording the moment. This is real, he shouted, excitement pulsing through his voice. This is what we need. He held the device like a beacon, capturing the connection that was forming. Officer Miller stepped closer, his hands clasped, wanting to offer reassurance. I know the badge can create a wall between us, but we're here to listen to help. We don't want to be part of the problem. Angela turned to him, her eyes fierce yet hopeful. It's about more than listening. It's about acting, working together. Her voice carried through the thick air, igniting a spark of passion in the crowd. One by one, people began to share their stories. An elderly man spoke of the struggles he faced in a world that seemed to ignore him. A young parent expressed the fear of raising kids in a society riddled with misunderstanding. With each shared experience, they all felt the walls break down a little more. In that moment, Angela realized this was not just her story. It was everyone's story, a tapestry of trials woven together by hope, resilience, and compassion. She felt something shift within her, a new strength curling into her chest. Voices intertwined, creating a harmony that channeled the collective spirit of the community. Let us keep this going, Angela urged, her voice now charged with determination. Let us create a way for all of us to connect beyond just this night. We need to meet regularly, talk, share ideas. We can forge a path forward if we support one another. Some from the crowd nodded, eyes brightening at the prospect. The energy buzzed through the air, electrifying and potent. A shared vision began to take root, and together, they could cultivate a community that wasn't just interconnected but thriving and supportive. As the night wore on, Angela felt lighter, unburdened by the chaos that once clouded her mind. She lost track of time as laughter and hope replaced the tension and fear. The weight of expectation had shifted. Now it felt like purpose. But deep down, a question remained: could this momentum carry beyond tonight? Would they follow through? Or would it fizzle out when life got busy again? Just then, from the edge of the crowd, a voice piped up. What if we create a support group? A place for real change? Angela turned, excitement bubbling. What if? She repeated, staring into the faces surrounding her, feeling the possibilities expand. A flame ignited. What would it take to keep this fire burning? And could they turn the tide of the community once and for all? The next few days felt like a whirlwind for Angela. The energy from that night lingered in the air, but with it came uncertainty. The momentum had built, but she wondered if it would sustain. Would people really show up? Could they face their fears together and continue the dialogue sparked by their shared stories? She set up a community meeting in the local park, a space nestled between the bustling neighborhood streets and the serene lake that reflected the clouds above. Ideally, it would be a safe haven where voices could rise above the noise. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow that seemed to wrap around her shoulders like a comforting blanket. As she arrived, she was surprised to see a decent crowd already gathered. Familiar faces stood among those she'd never seen before. Hope flickered inside her again, pushing back any lingering doubt. Each person brought their own struggles, but today, they united around the potential for change. Thank you all for coming, Angela said as she stepped forward, her voice weaving through the chatter. This is just the beginning. I want us to share our thoughts on how we can keep this going. An older man, whom she recognized from the previous meeting, raised his hand. I think we need workshops. Teach each other skills. Some people can cook. Others can fix things. Let us use what we have. His enthusiasm radiated, encouraging nods from the crowd. A young parent spoke up next, her voice trembling. I want to create a safe place for our kids. They need to know they can share how they feel too. It's not just us. It's about them. Her words intertwined with vulnerability and strength, resonating with many in the group. Angela felt a warmth spreading through her. They were starting to articulate their dreams and visions. It was no longer just about struggles. It was building bridges that could lead them out of the darkness. A teenager, the same one who had filmed their last meeting, jumped in with an idea of his own. Let us take this online. I could set up a page for us. People who can't make it can still have a voice. His tech-savvy suggestion sparked excitement rippling through the crowd. "That is brilliant," Angela exclaimed, the idea igniting passion. "We can use social media to connect, especially with young people who feel isolated. This could be the platform to amplify our stories." As the discussions flowed, people began expressing notions of art, music, and community events. Angela listened as they wove their plans together like a rich tapestry, vibrant and full of life. They were not just sharing ideas, they were forging a bond, and slowly but surely, they began to feel like family. But as the conversation grew spirited, so did the weight on Angela's chest. A voice of doubt crept in, the fear that not everyone would stay committed. Would they follow through with these plans when life nudged them back into their busy routines? Just as she pondered this, Officer Miller arrived, his presence commanding yet gentle. There was a swell of murmurs, and Angela felt the tension tighten in the air. Would their newfound alliance with the police hold? "Hey folks," he said, clearing his throat. "I want to support your ideas, help maintain this connection. But I also need to ask, what can we do better as officers in this community?" The crowd shifted, anticipation hanging on his words. Angela caught the look of surprise on several faces. Was this part of the partnership they had talked about, or was it a moment that could turn them back to distrust? "Do we trust they'll listen?" One voice cut through the murmur, challenging the momentous atmosphere. Angela held her breath. It was a critical test, not just of the officers but of their new unity. Would they embrace vulnerability or retreat into old patterns? With hearts beating as one, they all leaned in. Angela watched the crowd collectively hold their breath. The tension was palpable, like a thick fog settling just above the grass at their feet. She could feel a mixture of hope and doubt swirling in the air. What would happen next? Officer Miller stood tall, a figure of authority, but today he looked like a man searching for connection. It was a rare sight. His gaze swept across the faces in the crowd, some wary, some eager. Angela could see the flicker of skepticism in the eyes of the young parent, the hesitation etched across the face of the older man. They wanted to believe in this moment, but old wounds were hard to heal. A woman in the crowd, her hands trembling slightly, finally spoke up. "We need you to understand our struggles, not just hear about them. The police have often felt like an enemy, and it's going to take time for us to trust." Her words rang out, laced with both vulnerability and a fierce desire for change. Officer Miller nodded slowly, the weight of her truth hanging in the air. "I can't change what other officers have done, but I can do my best to make it right in our community," he said softly. "We're human too, and we want to help, but we need your help as well." Angela's heart swelled at his sincerity. It wasn't enough yet, but it was a start. She could almost see the walls beginning to crack, a glimpse of possibility shining through. "Can we take that step together?" she asked, her voice steady. The crowd exchanged glances. A few hesitated, and she feared she might lose them again. Then a young boy tugged at his mother's shirt. "Mom, I want him to help us," he said, innocence shining in his eyes. The laughter that followed broke the tension, momentarily replacing uncertainty with warmth. A more senior gentleman, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. "I think we can give him that chance. We share the same neighborhood, we want our children to grow up safe." The murmurs of agreement started spreading like wildfire, the beginnings of a collective voice. Angela felt hope blossom as the crowd began to engage. They were sharing their fears, their stories, and now they were also finding common ground. Ideas flowed. They discussed monthly community picnics, open dialogues, and events that paired local police with families. Each suggestion seemed to stitch tighter their growing bond. For a moment, it felt like they were more than just community members and officers. They were all part of something bigger, something that had a chance of changing lives. And yet, the concern that lingered in the back of her mind wouldn't fully fade. Would this alliance truly hold? Would they maintain the momentum when the comfort of familiarity beckoned them to retreat? As the meeting wrapped up, people started exchanging contact information enthusiastically. Angela took in the smiling faces around her, all brightened by the possibility of change. But just as she thought hope was at its peak, she noticed something: a group of teenagers lingering at the edge of the park. They had been watching from the shadows, and the looks on their faces were far from convinced. "Hey," a girl finally shouted out as the crowd began to disperse. "What about us? We don't trust you either." Her voice had bite, filled with fierce determination. A hush fell over all, and Angela felt that familiar weight settle back on her shoulders. How could they begin to bridge this divide? The journey ahead was so much bigger than they all realized. Officer Miller looked at Angela, his expression a mix of challenge and understanding. "Looks like we've got more work to do," he said, determination in his voice. Angela nodded, her heart pounding. She was ready to take that challenge on if only they could figure out how to approach those who stood at the edges, waiting in silence. What would make the untrusting embrace the dialogue and the growth they were striving for? As she glanced back at the teenagers, she wondered if she could reach them. Could they be part of this story? Or would they remain outside the circle, guarded by suspicion? That question lingered in the air, pressing like a drumbeat in her chest. Just as she was about to respond, a deep voice interrupted. "We might need to rethink how we engage the youth. They seem to be the ones most affected." Angela shifted, feeling the tension tingling down her spine. This was turning into an emotional maze, and she had to navigate it. But was she even ready for the deeper layers waiting to be uncovered? Angela took a deep breath, steeling herself as the crowd's energy shifted. Officer Miller's words hung in the air, and she could sense a new urgency to reach those teenagers. They weren't just spectators. They were the pulse of the community, the generation that could either embrace change or resist it fiercely. The girl who had spoken out, with her streaked hair and defiant stance, seemed to embody that resistance. Angela felt a strong urge to connect with her. She stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the teen. "What's your name?" she asked gently, hoping to make a personal connection. "Jasmine," the girl replied, her voice steady but her eyes cautious. "Jasmine, I'm Angela. I know it might feel like we don't understand you, but we want to hear your voice." "It matters," Angela said, pouring her sincerity into each word. A flicker of surprise crossed Jasmine's face. It was a small opening, but Angela cherished it. "We need ways to change this," Angela continued, gesturing back to the crowd. "It's not just on you to trust us, we have to earn it. What can we do to make that happen?" Jasmine exchanged glances with her friends. The tension in the air was palpable as they awaited this pivotal moment. "You really want to know?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "Absolutely," Angela replied, instinctively nodding. The crowd had become a mosaic of ears turned toward her, anticipation dancing in the air. Jasmine hesitated for a heartbeat. "You can start by showing up where we are, not just where it's easy. Join us in our spaces, our lives. We're not in the park every day," she demanded, her voice rising with the weight of lived experience. "And let us voice our struggles too." Angela's heart swelled with admiration. This girl was fierce and her words cut deep. "That's fair," Angela conceded. "But how do we do that while still keeping safety in mind?" Before Jasmine could respond, a boy from the same group scoffed. "Safety? You mean for you or for us?" He stepped forward, his distrust hanging just as heavily in the air as everyone's anticipation. Then Jasmine said, "We're tired of seeing you patrol, and not knowing what you're doing in our neighborhoods. If you really care, come talk to us where we hang out, not when it's a crisis." Officer Miller looked thoughtful, his face deepening into concentration. Angela's heart raced. Would he be able to respond effectively to such a bold suggestion? "We can set up listen and learn sessions," he proposed finally, his tone calm yet determined. "We'll meet where you are, hear your stories, and discuss solutions together. How does that sound?" The teens exchanged uncertain glances. It felt like a small glimmer of progress, but Angela could sense the hesitation. Jasmine crossed her arms, her defenses still up. "That's all nice," she said softly but firmly, "but we've heard promises before." "Then let's not do this just once," Angela replied quickly, her determination shining through. "Let's make it meaningful. Ongoing conversations, turning this into a consistent dialogue." The idea didn't feel like it belonged solely to them anymore. It was a shared vision. Jasmine looked around at her friends, and for a moment, Angela could see the battle between hope and skepticism reflected in Jasmine's gaze. "All right," she said slowly, "but we'll be watching. You better keep your word." With that, a collective sigh broke the tension, but it was tinged with cautious optimism. Could this truly be the start of a deeper connection? As the crowd slowly began to disperse, a wave of energy sparked between Angela and the teenagers. She felt lighter somehow, but still fully aware of the challenges ahead. Just as people were about to leave, Jasmine leaned toward Angela. You know, we're not the only ones. You need to talk to the others too, the ones who just gave up. Others? Angela asked, caught a little off guard. Jasmine nodded, her expression serious again. You'll see. Change isn't just about us. It's about bringing everyone in. Angela's heart raced as she processed Jasmine's words. Who else was waiting at the periphery? And could she gather the courage to reach them too? As she turned back to the crowd, newfound determination surged through her. The day ahead held more stories, more barriers to break down. The true journey had only just begun, and she had to know. What was it going to take to shift the entire narrative? Angela stood there, the fading sunlight casting long shadows on the pavement, feeling the weight of Jasmine's words. The day had shifted from simply a gathering to something more significant, more profound. She took a deep breath and glanced around at the departing crowd, hoping to identify more individuals like Jasmine, those whose voices had been muffled but yearned to be heard. Where do I even begin? She muttered to herself. She knew she couldn't walk away from this moment without taking action. As people dispersed, she spotted a group of young men lounging on the stairs of a nearby building. They exuded an air of aloofness, their laughter ringing out with an undertone of bitterness. She recognized that they were part of the conversation, however faintly. Moving toward them, she felt a mix of determination and anxiety. Hey there, she called out, her tone bright but genuine. One of the guys turned, his arms crossing defensively. What do you want? I'm Angela. I'm hoping to talk with you. Would you mind if I sat for a moment? Her heart raced as she approached, unsure of their reception. The boys exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. Finally, the one who had spoken stepped aside. All right, but make it quick. Angela settled herself on the step, keenly aware of their guarded expressions. I don't want to waste your time. I just had a conversation with some girls from the neighborhood about how we can better understand one another. I wanted to extend that to you guys too if you're open to it. Understanding? Look around, lady. Do you really think we're being understood? The boy shot back, his tone scathing. You're right, Angela replied, her voice steady. Change isn't going to happen overnight. But I'm here to listen. If there's something you think needs to change, I'd like to hear it. What can we do better? This seemed to catch their interest if but for a moment. One of the younger boys, noticeably quieter, shifted his weight. You think they'll really listen? The ones in charge? Angela nodded, feeling a spark of rapport. I've seen it. We're trying to turn that corner, but it starts with conversations like this. If we don't know the struggles you face, we can't help. The boy hesitated. You don't get it. We've tried to talk before, but it felt useless. What's the point of even doing this? Before Angela could respond, the older boy spoke again, his voice lowering. You're in a different world, miss. You'll never really see what we've been through. A chill ran through her. She understood their anger, their hurt. I may not fully understand, but that doesn't mean I won't try. But you have to meet me halfway. Another boy piped in. You want us to trust you? Why should we? You're just another person with a badge ready to turn your back when it gets tough. Angela closed her eyes for a moment, praying for the right words. Trust doesn't come easy, I get it. But if there's any way to earn it, we have to start somewhere. Silence hung in the air, tension stretching painfully between them. Finally, the younger one leaned back, contemplating her words. The others regarded him, awaiting his reaction. Maybe. We'll see what happens next time you come around, he said quietly, surprising them all. Angela smiled, her heart swelling with the small glimmer of hope. I'll be back. Count on it. As she got up to leave, the boy called after her. Wait. Don't just vanish. You better show up when you say you will. I promise, she replied, feeling the sincerity in her heart. With a lighter step, she walked away, feeling as if, against all odds, those fleeting moments had sown seeds of change. But as she turned the corner, her mind whirled back to Jasmine's warning about the others. What awaited her on that side of the community? And could she confront the deeper fears that lay hidden there? The sun was setting, but Angela's path felt brighter, yet ominous. She knew the true test of her commitment was just beginning. Angela walked a few blocks, her mind churning. The air felt different now, charged with possibilities but shadowed by fears. As she took in the sights around her, The familiar streets morphed into new landscapes. The laughter she heard earlier was replaced by distant sirens and the muted conversations of strangers. Soon she found herself standing in front of a small community center. Its paint peeling but its doors wide open. Inside, a group of kids were learning to dance, their energy swirling, each move an expression of unfiltered joy. Angela couldn't help but smile. This, she thought, was a world she wanted to engage with, one filled with enthusiasm, creativity, and the promise of change. She stepped inside, drawn by the rhythm. A woman, probably in her late 20s, spotted her and motioned her to come over. "Hey, you're new here, right?" "I'm Mia," she said warmly, her smile infectious. "Angela," she introduced herself, feeling an instant connection. "I'm trying to understand the community better. How are things going here?" Mia's smile faltered for just a moment. "It's tough sometimes. The kids need more resources, but we do what we can. Dance keeps them focused, you know?" "I can see that," Angela replied, watching the kids. Their eyes were bright, full of dreams not yet held back by the weight of the world. Mia leaned in closer, her voice lowering. "We're fighting for more support. It feels like a constant uphill battle." She glanced at the dance class, her expression both proud and weighed down by worry. But seeing their faces, it makes it all worthwhile. Angela felt a pang in her chest, a longing to help but also a heavy realization of the obstacles they faced. What if I could help? I could connect with local leaders, maybe organize some events? Mia's excitement bubbled forth, her eyes wide. "Really? That could be huge. But I can't promise anything will change overnight. It's a long road." "I know," Angela affirmed, determination in her voice. "But every step matters." Just then a loud crash echoed from outside, pulling their attention. Angela felt her pulse quicken as she looked toward the window. A group of men clad in dark uniforms loomed, their faces a mix of authority and unease. She recognized them instantly as police officers, and a knot tightened in her stomach. Mia noticed her reaction. "Stay cool," she whispered, her calm a stark contrast to Angela's anxiety. "What are they doing here?" Angela asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They come through sometimes. They don't always treat the kids well," Mia replied, crossing her arms protectively. A commotion erupted outside, voices raised in anger. Angela felt a surge of fear and anger wash over her. "This isn't right. I can't just stand here." "Wait." Mia grabbed her arm. "It's not our fight to provoke. Let us just see how it plays out." Angela's heartache twisted as she witnessed the confrontation unfold through the window. What if she lost the chance to make a difference because fear silenced her? She took a breath and stepped towards the door, drawn by something deeper, a need to stand tall and confront this reality. "Angela, don't!" Mia called after her. But her voice was drowned out as Angela pushed the door open. Standing before the officers, she felt a chill, but the fire within her burned brighter. "Excuse me," she called out, surprising even herself. "What's going on here?" The officers turned, surprise flashing across their faces. Angela held her ground, determined to bridge that divide, to show them all that understanding was possible even in the heat of anger. But could she do it? Would her words make any difference at all? As tension crackled around her, she braced herself, knowing the outcome could change everything. And she realized with a dawning clarity that her work was not merely about listening. It was about action, standing firm in the face of adversity. Could she really be the voice this community needed? The air thickened as she prepared for their response, feeling both excitement and fear intertwine within her. The moment was here and there was no turning back. Would they listen? Or would it end in conflict? Angela's heart raced as the officers turned to her, their collective gaze weighing heavily. It was almost as if the world had paused, surrounding her with a thick silence that only amplified her pulse. She couldn't let fear dictate her actions, not now. "Can I help you?" she asked, forcing a calmness into her voice that she didn't fully feel. "What is happening here?" A burly officer stepped forward, his brow furrowed, a hint of irritation crossing his face. "We're just talking to a few kids." His tone was stern but lacked contempt. Angela studied his features, trying to gauge his intent. "Talking about what?" she pressed, refusing to back down. She saw the kids behind him huddled close, eyes darting nervously, clearly sensing the tension. They deserved someone to stand up for them. The officer glanced at the kids, who seemed to shrink back even further. Nothing that concerns you, he said, but there was an edge to his voice. And yet I'm concerned. They're just kids. They shouldn't feel trapped or threatened in their own neighborhood. Angela replied, a wave of determination washing over her. She could feel Mia's anxious energy behind her, as if urging her to retreat, but Angela couldn't bear to do so. Ma'am, I suggest you step back. This isn't the place to make a scene, another officer warned, crossing his arms. Angela stood firm. No, I won't. If a scene is what it takes to protect them from fear and hostility, then that's what I'll do. They need to know that someone cares. The atmosphere shifted slightly as murmurs began to rise among the people who had gathered nearby. Angela noticed faces filled with a mixture of admiration and uncertainty, the weight of her stance rippling through them. Look, we're not here to hurt anyone. We have a job to do, the first officer explained, stress evident in his tone. His eyes narrowed slightly, still searching for a way to defuse the situation without escalating it. But this isn't just about you or your job. It's about trust and respect, something that seems shattered here, she replied, taking a small step closer, her heart pounding. If you want the community to feel safe, it starts with how you treat the kids. A flicker of something acknowledgement, perhaps, crossed the officer's face, but it was fleeting. The tension hung like a storm cloud above them, visibly shifting as more people arrived. Children peeking from behind walls, parents standing nervously, holding their breaths. Please, just tell them they're safe, Angela urged, desperately glancing at the kids, who were now eyes wide with confusion. The atmosphere crackled with expectancy, as the officers exchanged uneasy glances. All right, the first officer conceded, his voice softening slightly. Just stay calm. I'll ensure they know they're safe. No one is in trouble. Angela exhaled, the weight of the moment shifting onto her shoulders. But just as she thought they were making headway, another shout emerged from the crowd, a voice filled with anger and fear. You think that's enough? You don't just get to say that and walk away. The words hung in the air, igniting a deeper unrest. Angela watched as the crowd began to murmur, the fragile peace she had tried to construct teetering dangerously on the edge of collapse. She could sense it, she could feel it in her bones. In that moment, she knew she hadn't just stepped into a confrontation, she had stepped into a movement. And this could mark the beginning of change or the spiral into chaos. Feeling a deep sense of urgency, Angela turned back to the officers, determination burning in her gut. We need to talk this out. All of us. Not just you two and me, but everyone here. Otherwise we'll stay trapped in this cycle of fear. Could they find a way forward together? Or was this the moment everything turned in an unexpected direction? Angela's eyes caught the motion of the crowd shifting restlessly. The parents began to murmur amongst themselves, casting nervous glances at the officers, fear and uncertainty etched across their faces. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but her heart was still racing. This was bigger than her now, it was about the community. The burly officer cleared his throat, seeming to sense the unease. I get it. You're trying to help. But we need to keep order here, he said. One hand laced tightly around his equipment belt. Order. You think order means scaring children? Angela shot back, the fire in her voice surprising even herself. You're supposed to protect them, not make them afraid to play outside. Murmurs began to shift into quiet applause from some onlookers. It was a small flicker of hope, but Angela could see it spreading like warm sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. Another woman stepped forward from the crowd, her teenage son gripping her hand tightly. She's right. The woman said, her voice shaking. You can't just come into our neighborhood like this. We deserve to feel safe too. Angela's heart swelled. This was the kind of unity she hoped for. One by one, more people edged closer, their expressions hardening into resolve. They weren't going to stand by anymore. Listen to us, shouted a man from the back, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. What happens to our kids matters. We can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. The officers exchanged nervous glances again, clearly outnumbered now, but still hesitant. The atmosphere shifted once more. Electricity in the air, as if something important was about to break free. Let us sit down and talk about this, the first officer suggested, taking an uncertain step back. We're willing to listen. We want to do better. Angela felt a rush of adrenaline. This could be a turning point. That's all we're asking for. A conversation, she said, her voice steady now, more assured. Let us bridge the gap. The kids, still pressed against the wall, looked on with a mix of hope and hesitation, their wide eyes flickering back and forth between Angela and the officers. Their small hands were balled into fists, their brows furrowed as they sensed the tension ebbing. As the crowd began to push closer, more people joined in, adding their voices to the growing momentum. We need to be heard, shouted another parent. We need our children to feel safe. In that moment, Angela felt a surge of warmth in her chest. This was the kind of collective spirit that could ignite change. She glanced sideways at Mia, who was smiling now, her earlier anxiety dimming under the weight of shared purpose. But the moment was fragile. Just as Angela thought they were making strides, a sudden ruckus erupted at the back of the crowd. A young man had climbed onto a nearby car, his face red with passion. This is all well and good, but what happens when we're not here? When you leave? The crowd's murmur intensified, a ripple of doubt sweeping through it. Angela's stomach sank. Would the fear return? She stepped forward again, her hands raised. We're building something together now. Change doesn't happen in one moment. It requires all of us to keep pushing. Together we can hold you accountable. Stand together, and we let fear take back our streets. The young man paused, his fury fighting against the hope beginning to bloom. Could they actually forge a new path? Angela stood on the precipice of possibility, ready to lead this movement into the light. But even as she spoke, she felt the heaviness of uncertainty, the lingering doubt of whether it would all collapse in on itself. As the crowd stared, waiting for answers, she realized they were all wondering the same thing. What would come next? Would they be able to protect their community? Or would the forces that divide them break through once again? Angela stood there, heart pounding, the weight of the moment hanging thick in the air. The crowd had gathered, their faces a mix of hope and apprehension, all searching for answers. No one wanted to return to the shadows, to retreat into fear. But could togetherness truly spark real change? Sitting down and talking is the first step, she said, her voice rising above the murmurs. But it's not just about words, it's about actions. We need commitments. We need to hold each other accountable. The officers shifted, exchanging wary glances. The apprehension still flickered in their eyes, but as she looked around, Angela caught sights of nodding heads in the crowd, people absorbing her words. Officer Miller's brow furrowed as he stepped forward again. All right, he said, a hint of resolve settling in his tone. If this is the first step, we will meet regularly. Together we'll find solutions. A wave of relief washed over her. But she wasn't finished. And she added, her gaze sweeping across the crowd, we want a representative from this community at those meetings. Someone who can voice our concerns directly, someone who knows our struggles. Yes, shouted Jasmine from the back, a fierce determination igniting her voice. It should be us, those who really know what's going on. Cheers erupted, echoing through the air. The energy shifted, creating a crackling charge of determination. Seeing the crowd rally, Angela pressed on. We need to educate our kids on how to interact with authority, so they don't feel paralyzed by fear. To do this, we need workshops, a safe space to talk about our rights. Who's with me? Hands shot up, cheers echoed, and the tide of hope formed a palpable current surrounding Angela. Mia stepped forward, passion rich in her voice. We can organize community events. Let us showcase our talents, our culture, and create moments where policing comes from understanding instead of fear. Yes, let us do it together, Angela exclaimed, heart racing as the synergy buzzed between her and the crowd. Here was the spark she had yearned for, the genuine empathy she had hoped to cultivate. As plans began to take shape, Angela felt a sense of lightness, a stepping away from the darkness that had clouded her heart. The promise of real change shimmered in their eyes. Officers Miller and Thompson stood among them, no longer symbols of conflict, but stewards of collaboration. Thank you for stepping forward, Thompson said, his voice steady. We're ready to change how we think and act, not just for you but with you. Finally, Angela felt the muscle in her chest loosen. They could transform this moment into a movement, a pathway toward a communal bond. Just as excitement reached a crescendo, the young man who had climbed on the car stepped down, looking contemplative. I appreciate this, but we need to ensure this doesn't just become talk. Can we commit to follow-ups? Document what we're doing? Yes. We'll create a digital platform where we can share our progress and ideas, Angela declared, feeling a renewed fire inside her. Together, we will not let this fizzle out. A unifying cheer surged through the crowd, lifting spirits high into the evening sky. The barriers that once seemed insurmountable had begun to crumble. Walls built of mistrust, misunderstanding, and fear were slowly transforming into bridges of connection, creativity, and strength. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow, Angela looked around and realized she wasn't alone anymore. They had moved from fear to hope, from isolation to community. And as she stood among them, fellow community members, children, officers, she saw the outline of unity take shape before her. It was fragile, yes, and there would be challenges ahead. But today was about building something deeper than just dialogue. They were setting the foundation for authentic change. Let us meet again in a week, Angela said, her voice ringing with purpose. Together we will chart the path we want to create. Not just for tonight, but for future generations. A shared promise echoed back, a resounding agreement that filled the night air, one that carried the weight of their shared burdens as well as their dreams. Angela felt a swell of gratitude and renewal. The past still echoed around them, yet together they would forge ahead, creating a story defined by collective strength. She could feel her heart full as she walked away that night, devoid of fear and filled with newfound hope. And in that moment, a smile broke across her face, radiant and strong. It was a beginning. It was a true transformation. And now it's time for you to join this movement. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support our mission. Comment below to share your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and believe in the power of community action. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait, not even one more second, to share it. Your voice matters.